Welcome, everyone. Jonathan Troen here. Welcome to another episode of Shared Humanity. I'm really excited for this one. Marc Mawhinney is here, one of the top coaches in the world. I've been following him for, I don't even know. It's been a few years now. So first, welcome, Marc. So happy that you're joining me here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jonathan.
So here's the thing about Marc. He's one of the most well-known coaches. He's got a podcast, Natural Born Coaches. He runs his Facebook group, The Coaching Jungle. And I want to get into the building of that, because how you did that fascinates me. Because when I got in, I think there were like 5,000 people, and now you got 20,000. But I know that you didn't always do this. And I love stories of reinvention. And I want to hear how you got to where you are today, how you rebuilt yourself.
Yeah, so I mean, my reinvention was I went through a really dark period, 2009. I had built up a real estate business for about 10 years through my 20s. And it was hockey stick growth, which is appropriate. I'm in Canada, so we use a hockey analogy, but it was just nuts. Like every year was shooting up. And, I started with a couple agents on my team, and I grew from there. And then pretty soon I had 100 and a couple different office spaces. And I thought I could do no wrong. I was young and full of, I say, piss and vinegar, like, oh yeah, the world's my oyster. And then everything came collapsing. And I went through a dark period of a couple of years where I went through not just that, but another business closure. And so after years of everything I touched turned to gold, suddenly nothing was working for me. And that's how I first got exposed to coaching. I had to hire a coach, and actually I hired several coaches, and I got help from mentors just to get me out of the ditch, and back on track. And so when I was ready to get back into business early 2014, I thought, you know what, I'd really love to do this coaching thing because I've seen what it can do. And that was, yeah, almost 7 years ago.
So you said you hired several coaches. Was it that, well, this guy didn't work, I need someone different. This guy didn't work, I need someone different. Or did they all give you something different? They were all good and helped you, but different parts of the puzzle.
Well, the one of the people who was probably the most influential wasn't even a hired coach. It was more a mentor who reached out to me right when the business closure was going on. I was getting killed in the newspapers. I mean, it was, you would know where you're at. I mean, you've lived in Boston, you're in Austin, stuff like that. It wouldn't be big news where you've been. You were in LA for years. This wouldn't make D25 in the newspaper. Here in the small Atlantic, Canada, if you have a real estate business the size that mine was, and then all of a sudden it closes, I was just getting killed, and so I always say I coined the term fake news many years before Trump did. I should have probably, tried to trademark it or something like that. But someone reached out to me who had no clue who he was when this was all going on. And when I'm used to getting like attacked and hate mail and everything else, he said, "Hey, I saw your story in the paper. Kudos for trying, and what you accomplished." And he said, "I'd love to meet up for coffee and just chat with you." Now I wasn't in exactly socializing mood, and I thought, who's this guy? And he was an hour away as well. I'm like, I don't want to drive an hour. I'm not feeling terribly social, but something told me to go ahead and do it. And I don't drink coffee too, by the way. I hate coffee. I'm going to lose my Canadian citizenship. I hate beer and coffee. But I said, I'll go up. I'll have a hot chocolate and we could chat. And he ended up becoming, one of my friends, mentor, but also a friend. Many years later, we're still, always talking and stuff. When I did that meeting with him, it really changed my energy around, because up till then I thought, the whole world hates me. I got this scarlet letter of a business closure now attached to me. And from talking with him, he had gone through a couple bad closures. He said, "Do you know this person, this local entrepreneur, this car dealership, this restaurant, this one?" He'd be like, "Yeah, they went through business closure and bankruptcy. This person went through it. This person went through it." And it all of a sudden shifted. I thought, wow, I'm not alone here. And that was the start of the comeback. Now, it was a number of years before I could say that I came back, but that was a very big turning point for me. But to answer your question, I hired good coaches and bad coaches. But I always say that I learn from every coach that I hire, because even the bad coaches, I say, okay, I don't want to do that with my clients, so I learn a lesson from all of them.
But that's such an amazing story. So this random guy out of the blue just reaches out to you, and that's the beginning of the transformation.
There you have it. He was one of the few people who actually did that. You know, the interesting thing, when you go through a business closure, you learn really quickly who your friends are and who was just on the gravy train for a free ride. And I had a lot of people who I was surprised how quick they fled, you know, when the things weren't going good. And that's fine. You know, that's life. And not saying, by the way, I'm not saying I'm perfect. I made a lot of mistakes around then too. So, but yeah, he actually reached out to a stranger. He found my contact info, reached out, asked for a meeting, and just very genuine, sincere. And I really appreciate what he did. So even now, when I see businesses closing, which we've been seeing a lot with COVID and with government and bureaucrats, you know, basically killing businesses, I always feel for those entrepreneurs, because I know they're not getting a lot of support. And I've actually reached out to entrepreneurs who've closed and just say, hey, you know, I know it's cliche, but keep your chin up, you know, times will get better. So I wouldn't be chatting with you here today, Jonathan, if that hadn't happened. I would probably be a stressed out, pissed off real estate person in Atlanta, Canada. And so I'm very happy that happened, not how it happened, but I'm glad that it happened.
And so powerful. And I just want everyone watching or listening to really, really hear that. Like, you can call a stranger and change their life, because we're all afraid to do that. We think we see something and like, oh, I would love to reach out to that person, but we're afraid to. Call a stranger. You might change someone's life. That's really beautiful. So then, so you got coached, and then you decided to start coaching yourself. Was it as simple a transition as that?
Well, you probably not, but we don't have a lot of time. There's a lot of you know, side ventures and journeys and things. Basically what had happened was I'm unemployable. I can't work for anyone. If lots of people can, and kudos to them, I go crazy if someone says to me, you have to work 9 to 5, you got to do this, got to do that. So I knew that I wanted to be back in business, and I had taken on a sales gig with a telecommunications company here in Canada. Super flexible, work from home. There's just 2 of us in the whole province that did this position. My manager was hours away in Halifax, never heard from him. So it was super flexible, but I still felt constrained, even though I wasn't, you know, what people would think constrained. Everyone thought, oh my God, that's a dream gig. And I said, I really want to get back into business, but I don't want to be back into real estate. And I also don't want to be confined to my local sandbox. I find I love this part of the world. Atlanta, Canada is great. You know, there's a lot of good things about it. It can be a little bit small-minded at times. It's not terribly entrepreneurial. It's getting better. But I said, I don't want to be restricted doing local business. And I said, I want to get online. I want to do business with people in, hey, Austin, Texas, people in California, people across the pond in the UK. And that's where I started my coaching business. Slapped up a website, threw a bunch of spaghetti at the wall, and then things eventually started to stick, luckily. And I'm very grateful that I took that jump.
So, you know, speaking of, this is a good transition to moving online, because you have the coaching jungle, and I don't know how many years I joined it, but when I joined it, it was 5,000 people, which I thought was a big group. It looked like cool things were happening, and I'm a coach, so I joined it, and it's now 20,000 people. So, and you know, this podcast, this show is called Shared Humanity. This is all about creating connection. You created connection with a whole mess of people, a jungle of people, I guess we'd say. And yeah, I just want to dig into that. Like, what does it feel like to do it? Was it always your intent? Did you want to follow in 20,000 people? Was that your goal or more? Like, did you always want to create a following?
Yeah, whenever I do something, I tend to just jump in head first. I don't dip my toe in. And the plan with the group is I always wanted to grow it. Now, I'm not saying size is everything. I don't think you have to have a 20,000, 30,000 person group to be a valuable group. There's great groups out there that have 500 people, and that's fine. For me, though, I knew there were a lot of coaches out there, and I wanted it to be, you know, one of the bigger, or if not the biggest, coaching groups, but also the best. You know, the people are getting value from there, and they're coming in every day. So what had happened was, before I launched the Jungle, which was in late 2015, I had a Facebook group for the year previously for guests of my podcast, Natural Born Coaches. So every time someone was on my show, I would then invite them into a Facebook group, build the relationships that way. So I had a couple hundred, 300 and some members inside that Facebook group because it was a daily show for the first year that I was running the podcast. And what was happening was I had a bunch of people, other coaches who hadn't been on the show, who were requesting to join. Even though the title of the group was Natural Born Coaches Past Guests, they weren't noticing the past guest part. They just saw coaches. So I had to send this canned response to save time. Hey, thanks for requesting to join, but this is only for people who have been a guest on my show. Basically, have a nice life. After that had happened enough times, I thought, you know what? I think there's really demand for a coaching group, here on Facebook, because I'm getting so many requests that I'm turning away for the Natural Born Coaches Past Guest group. What I decided to do was to close down that Facebook group for past guests. So my show is still going strong. I mean, we're going to hit episode 700 soon, but I don't have a Facebook group for it. I'm putting all my energy into the Coaching Jungle, which is open to all coaches or aspiring coaches as well. And I think that was the right move for me. Not saying it's for everybody. Some people might want to keep a smaller, tight-knit group, but I like it the way it's going.
So what does someone have to do to grow a group like that? If someone whether it's coaching or not, and we have the subject and I want to share this with the world, what does someone have to do to get there?
Well, I got off to a good start with the jungle because right away we had our first 500 people pretty quick, because I already had a following from the podcast or people who were in the other Facebook group. So I wasn't starting from scratch. That being said, I still had to talk it up constantly. I find a lot of people start a Facebook group, they'll post about it once or twice, and then that's it. They're like, gee, only 2 people joined. Well, yeah, you posted Wednesday night at 11:30 p.m. once about it. Yeah, I always say that you have to talk up your group. You have to be like that annoying parent of a newborn baby that keeps talking about their baby. They can't shut up. And you have to keep talking about it and encourage people to join. Like, why should they be in this group? There are a trillion Facebook groups out there, and people don't need more groups. Most people are, I don't know about you, Jonathan, but most people are in 200 groups, 300 groups, maybe 75 groups. It's a lot of groups. So why should they take time out of their day to join that group, but then also keep coming back? And that's a mistake I see a lot of group owners making. They think, well, I'll just open up the group. It takes 20 seconds to slap it up, and then it's open and people will come in, naturally. And that doesn't happen. I found we hit a tipping point around 1,000 members. Once we got over 1,000, Facebook started recommending the Coaching Jungle to more and more people. So now I still talk it up, though. I don't just coast and say, oh, that's good, Facebook's talking about it. I'm still talking about it on shows like this, the summits I do, and my emails and so on. So you have to continually promote it. Don't get lazy and keep talking it up.
That is such a good point. And I love that analogy about a baby, because I often talk about my business, especially when we first moved to Austin 6 years ago or so. We have a yoga studio here. We opened the yoga studio, and then a month later, our baby was born. So it was like, boom, brand new life, two babies. And we spoke about it as if we have 2 babies. So that, and yeah, we talk about our babies nonstop, but for some reason, people are afraid to talk about their businesses because they think they're bragging or don't want to share too much. I love that analogy. Talk about your business like it's your baby, because it is, and you want it to be healthy, like you want your baby to be healthy.
And loosen up and don't take it too serious. So anyone going to the Coaching Jungle, that's at coachingjungle.com. Shameless plug. You'll see, the first thing they'll see is a big banner with a cartoon Tarzan Marc swinging across. That's the easiest way to get 6-pack abs. I don't have to go to the gym or anything. They just Photoshop my head onto a Tarzan body, and there's my 6-pack. But right away, that's something that's different, because how many coaches are uptight and stuffy, and they say, oh, gee, I can't do that. That's not really professional. And they think that they should stay away from it. If you're doing a group, you have to have some fun with it, make it different than the other groups that are out there. The banner, the other lesson that comes from it is, don't be afraid to say, hey, this is my group. I see so many Facebook groups when I go in and take a look, they don't have the host's name, picture, or anything on top there. You don't know who's running the group. If you're spending the amount of time to build up a group and give this free community with hopefully valuable for your people, then you should be compensated for it. So you should have your name up there in bright shining lights so people know whose group it is.
That's great advice. And So yeah, like you said, I'm a part of way too many groups. A lot of just because someone will ask me, and I want to support their endeavor. I like to be a very
Yeah.
supportive person, but most of them have no engagement. I couldn't even tell you most of the groups I'm in. But your group, there is so much engagement in there and when I say engagement, I'm talking about connection, human people connection. How do you, as leader, host, caretaker of the coaching jungle, how do you make sure that's happening? How do you do that?
Well, it's tricky because I get crapped on sometime because we have certain rules in that group to make sure that doesn't become the Wild West. So, for example, people can't promote on the wall, although I do. I tell people when they join, by the way, I promote my own stuff. If you're not cool with it, you should leave. But they can't just go on and slap their links and stuff on the wall. There's theme days for it. It's very clear on the rules. So myself or my admin team, if we delete something from there, there's that option to check off which rule it broke, and it sends them feedback. And I just had this a couple days ago. A guy got, I don't know, you can edit it out if you want. He got butthurt because his post got deleted. He was asking, and it wasn't even a really bad spam post. He wanted to barter services. He wanted coaching. He didn't have the money to pay for it, but he wanted to provide services in exchange for coaching, which is totally fine. He's going through a rough time, it sounded like, and that's cool. We deleted it and just gave the feedback. This is why it's deleted. There's a help wanted thread that these have to stay in. 5 minutes later, he posted on the wall that I'm apparently, somehow he said, we're not allowed to talk to each other here because the master doesn't want it, and I'm worse than Hitler, it sounded that way, which is fine. I deleted that post, booted him from the group because I just didn't want that energy in there. I'm like, see ya. I then get a private message from him. Apparently I have a shady business because I sell to my Facebook group and I don't let other people post on the wall. And this is me blowing off steam, but I'm just telling the story that to show that's not all sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows with a 20,000 person group. There are some headaches, although there's relatively few for the size of the group that we have. But it's an annoying thing for me when people don't read the rules and they just get in and start, shooting stuff on the wall, and then they get annoyed when it gets taken off with it. So I always encourage discussion. Obviously, I want people to connect. And I want people to also get business from there because I can't work with 20,000 people. 20,000 people, I'm not their cup of tea. I don't have what they need, or I don't want to work with them. So I want people to get business from there, but it's got to be the right way. You can't just go in and spam the wall and then, hope that works. So it's a bit of a balancing act. You want to encourage discussion, all that stuff, but you do have to have a bit of an iron grip when it comes to enforcing the rules, because if not, it can very quickly go south. And I was in a group years ago, there's about 4,000 coaches, and it used to be really good. The admins stopped moderating the posts or enforcing rules or anything, and it became the home shopping network. Just with the amount of junk that was on the wall, some stuff wasn't even selling stuff, it was just garbage things on there, so it could go south really quick.
Yeah, I mean, keeping those rules keeps the integrity of what people are saying, and then people want to share more because there's real value there. I think that's really powerful. Let me ask you, did you have to change, or did a change take place in you as you grew from this really small group of a few hundred people, and then 1,000 was your breaking point or the turning point, and now 20,000? Did you have to evolve as a human being to manage this?
Well, I hope I'm evolving regardless. That's a goal, and we just went through New Year's not long ago. Of course, that's the time that everyone looks at, okay, what happened the last year? Where am I going to grow, and so on. I honestly don't think so. I think my business has remained pretty similar. I mean, there's been some changes since 2014. I was always in growth mindset because when I was in real estate, I was just go, go, go. Like that's how I started at 21, right out of university, and grew to become the top agent in my marketplace because I was extremely aggressive and I have a growth mindset. So just like Carol Dweck talks about in her book Mindset, there's the fixed mindset, growth mindset, or so on. I've always been growth mindset with it. So I always saw the group becoming that big and bigger. Like we're aiming for 100,000 and beyond, in that group. So people say to me, "Oh my God, Mark, your group's so big," or whatever. I'm impatient. I'm like, no, it should be higher.
You're
It
saying
should
it's
be.
a small group.
Well, in my mind, it is.
Yeah.
I'm like, if there's ever a woman who's, 115 pounds, but she thinks she's fat, and every time she looks in the mirror, she sees a 300-pound, person. That's what I'm like with that group. I'm like, no, it should be growing faster. We want to keep going with it. So I'm a little hard on myself. That's why your topic, we were chatting before we hit record here. It's interesting to me because you're all about self-love. And sometimes I'm too hard on myself. I need more probably self-love to ease up a little bit. So in the holidays, if I took half a day off in around Christmas and didn't work and just read a book and relax, I'm like, oh, come on, Mark, you got to get out there. And who was it? Well, you'd appreciate this as a Celtics fan. Larry Bird, I think, said that that's what kept him practicing was the thought of some other person somewhere else practicing when he was taking his foot off the gas, and that's why he was so prolific with his practice and everything else. That's how I am. For right or wrong, I'm sure there's positives and negatives there, but I'm pretty hard on myself.
Well, if you need some self-love help, happy to talk to you and share with you.
Good stuff.
Yeah, but it's interesting you bring up Larry Bird because he had a daily work ethic. He showed up every day. And that's something that has always fascinated me about you as well. The power of showing up daily, because we haven't mentioned this yet, but Marc also has not a newsletter. He's got a daily newsletter. It goes out every single day. So can you share about that power of just showing up daily and honestly, how you do it?
Yeah.
I'm fascinated.
Well, you're right. It's such an noisy online space that if you don't show up every day, you could get forgotten pretty quick. So I'll tell you a really fast story. There's a coach I spoke to before. She had a banner year, best year ever. She was killing it. She decided to reward herself. This was pre-COVID, by the way. She decided to reward herself January, February, March, once the calendar changed over to the new year. And she's going to rent an Airbnb somewhere warm down south and take 3 months off, basically, because she thought, well, my business was great. I had such a great year. I need to recharge, and I'll come back in April and things will be, still rolling. And basically, she told me she had to build it up pretty much from scratch for 3 months. And I'm not suggesting that you don't take vacations, but there are probably some things she could have done there to schedule some stuff just to stay front and center and on people's minds. But it goes to show that things can change really quickly. You can lose that momentum. Who would think 3 months that she would be forgotten by her marketplace, but she basically was. I always remember that story keeps me up at night. If I ever want to take a day off, I'm like, oh God. For daily emails, I started my first daily email was April of 2016. And I was encouraged to do so by a past guest on my podcast who was really big on daily emails. I said, I'll give it 30 days and see. And I haven't stopped since. So I've now done, I just checked the other day, over 1,700 straight days without missing one, knock on wood. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of daily emails. Now, your consistent action might not be emails. If somebody's like, oh, I hate writing, maybe it's Facebook Lives or, maybe it's YouTube or something else, but you have to pick a couple, at least one place, but a couple good places to be at and then be there constantly just to stay front and center.
That's another thing I wanted to ask you, because so your Facebook group is small for you. I think it's huge, somewhere in the middle, maybe. In terms of splitting energy, do you go to the other platforms? Are you on Instagram? Are you on Twitter? Or have you said, because a lot of people get confused, like, well, where do I go? There's so much. Or have you just said, screw everything else and I'm doing this?
Or there's Clubhouse. How many invites have you gotten to Clubhouse or people talking about it?
It's going off right now. If I showed you all these top things, Clubhouse. Yeah, it's.
I'm on Clubhouse. Somebody I did a Zoom call with got me on last week or 2 weeks ago, but I'm very hesitant to take on a new social media platform. Now I know all these people saying, "Oh no, it's different." But a couple months ago it was Parler. Oh, you got to be on Parler, and there's MeWe. They're talking about all these others. So my thought is it's okay to try different ones to see what you gel with, because some of them you're not going to like, some you're really going to take to, but you can't be doing 177 different things. I have something I call my 3 pillars, and I recommend this for coaches, online entrepreneurs, is you pick just a couple ones to focus on, 3. Because Jim Collins, the author of Good to Great, he said, if you have more than 3 priorities, you don't have any. So with 3 pillars, mine are podcasting. So that's my show. And then also going out on shows like we're doing right now. There's Facebook, but especially the Facebook group. That's an important part of my business. And then there's email marketing, specifically the daily emails, like we talked about. If I'm doing podcasting, Facebook group, daily emails, I'm good. Your three pillars could be different. Like I mentioned, if you said you hate emails, well, it could be video or it could be something else. The other advantage for having three is if one of them goes away, the dodo bird, you're not stuck. So remember a couple of years ago, Blab, there were Blab experts, people who love Blab and everything else, or Google Hangouts. I know someone who was an expert on Google Hangouts. Rest in peace. Not him, Google Hangouts. He's alive. If he had only put all his eggs in that one basket, like was it Andrew Carnegie that said, put all your eggs in one basket, then guard that basket? I kind of disagree with it. I think it's good to have a couple baskets just in case.
And that's a powerful idea. I mean, threes work so easily anyway, and it's easy to have more than three. If you got more than three things you're doing, pull it back.
Yeah, because if you're doing it that way, you're trying to be, don't get me wrong, I'm in other places. I'm on LinkedIn, you know, I've got good size following there. I'm on Instagram. I'm not really an Instagram guy. Who knows? I might do something with Clubhouse, but I'm not, there's no way you can spend 5-6 hours on each of those. There's not enough hours in the day. The fellow who invited me onto Clubhouse and got me set up, he's like, oh yeah, I'm spending 6-7 hours a day on Clubhouse. You know, I just, if I'm doing some work, I'll turn it on, I'll listen, or I'll hop on. I'm getting notifications from him constantly. Now, he's a great guy. He's a good coach, doing very well. He's got a good business. So I don't want to knock him. If it's working for him, great. But I'm, as said, very hesitant to jump onto the flavor of the day and say, oh, okay, I'm going to hop on this platform and suddenly spend my all waking hours on it. If anything, I want to do less social media. One of the other people I've learned a lot from, the guy that got me into daily emails, is Ben Settle. And Ben is a brilliant guy when it comes to email marketing and copywriting and so on. He actually killed all his social media probably a couple of years ago. He got off all of them, you know, and focused, because he was just saying it was just distraction. It was taking him away from his other stuff. His business is on fire. Like, if Ben could do it, other people could do it too. So I think there's a need for social media. It can be good for your business, but especially at the dumpster fire of 2020 into 2021, it can be such a distraction. I think for a lot of these coaches, take half the time you're spending on Facebook or wherever and put it into your business. You'd be a lot better off.
Yeah, well, I'll share the greatest piece of advice, at least off the top of my head, that I've gotten from Marc over the years. And I don't think I've shared with you that I got this from you, the Facebook drive-by.
Yeah, that's right.
A few years ago, and it is, because I even got busted on it this morning because I wanted to see, I knew we were talking. So I said, well, how big is his group right now? Because, I know it was at 18,000, now it's at 20,000. So I went on just to check that out, but I got hijacked because all of a sudden there was a DM and there was this and that. And I'm like, whoa, I know I only got on for one thing. So the Facebook drive-by, if you got something to post, go post it, log off. And
basically it's like a drive-by shooting. You do what you have to do, then you squeal and get out of the neighborhood. I broke my rule the other night because it's tough for me. I love politics. I'm a political science major back in university, and I just really love politics. I said in 2021, I'm going to try to pull back a bit from politics because I'm very opinionated and I don't have a filter with it. So, of course, there's some stuff going on in Washington, D.C., in your capital with, stuff in there. And I posted on it, stupid Marc. I posted something that I would think would be non-controversial, where I said rioting's bad regardless of which side's rioting, whether it be last year's riots or this one or whatever. I got attacked by both sides. I said this post sums up what's wrong in 2021, because I would think it would be non-controversial to say, hey, rioting's bad. Apparently that's controversial in 2021, but that wasted 2 hours at night and a lot of mental energy. And I learned my lesson. This is stupid. Some people are just on there. They want to fight. I'm not going to change their minds regardless. So,
and that's so interesting to me because, you and I haven't spoken politics that much, but we've had a couple things, and you and I are on opposite sides of the spectrum, but yet there's still connection there. We can see beyond those parts of us. We can see the humanity in each other, and that the ultimate goals are the same. So I always see you, even though I know you have this part of you, it's like it's okay to divide. I also see the part of you that is just accepting of whoever is around you.
Yeah, I mean, some of my best clients have been on the other end of the political spectrum. Like anyone who follows my stuff can tell I'm a conservative guy, probably have a libertarian streak and stuff like that. But I don't say, oh, I wouldn't work with anyone, liberal or whatever. Now, if someone's a raging communist, we're probably not going to work well together. But one of my clients, it was funny, she's in California and we get along great. We never talked politics. So one day we're doing a Zoom call. She had a cup of coffee that she happened to just put up, and then she sheepishly put it down or whatever. And I got looking at it, and it was a Bernie Sanders mug. And so I teased her about it. It's like, oh, no. And she laughed or whatever. And we had a good chat. But some of my best clients have been far left tree hugging types. And that's great, unless it's somebody that's, that hates anyone making money and tweeting out tax or rich or something like that. I don't think we'd get along really well. But that post I put up, I basically said those people were nuts going into the, into the Capitol and should be charged or whatever. Because you can't say, okay, well, the stuff going on last summer, that's not cool and stuff, and throw the book at them. But they say, oh, okay, well, that was all right what was happening in Washington because it was our side. I'm like, no, I think there's crazy people on all sides that are nuts. And it's funny, I'm in Canada and a lot of Canadians get distracted by what's going on in your country. And I've had to say to some Canadians I know, like, hey, this isn't our country, even though I know that it affects us or whatever, but let's not spend 24/7 worrying about Trump or worrying about Biden or whatever. Like, you got to focus on your business too, because you could eat up a lot of time with things that just aren't going to move the needle.
Yeah. Although sometimes I'll be honest, I wish Canada were our country or
I've heard that a lot. I'm not the snooty Canadian, because a lot of Canadians share that meme where it says we feel like we're the upstairs neighbor of the meth lab or whatever. And they think that our, shit doesn't stink. And I'm like, there's a lot of things I love about your country. A lot of times I feel like I was born in the wrong country. I love the entrepreneurial drive, the spirit. I mean, the capital. I just love a lot of stuff about America. And I've told Americans before, I'm like, you guys are too rough on your country. Yeah, there's stuff going on. But overall, when you compare it to other experiments around the world and stuff, America has done very well, and they should be proud of what they've done. And they're still, they can things to improve. But hey, that's every country. So I'm not a snooty Canadian. We have for our military a canoe, 2 muskets, and that's it. So if there's ever a world war, a lot of these snooty Canadians are going to come back to you guys like, hey, we're really sorry what we said. Can you give us a hand here? We're getting invaded by Russia. Do you want to give us a hand?
But it's funny. So that comes back to the self-love conversation with this self-love, which is very personal. But if you really look at it as a broad subject, it also has to do with culture, right? Because cultures beat themselves up as well. So if you talk about the United States, I don't know if it's a culture, but this entity, right? So you're right. We're beating ourselves up for a lot of problems. And if we had some compassion for all the great that has happened and understanding that there's a lot of imperfections, just like personal imperfections, that's a great perspective that you share. We have to embrace it both so that we can change for the better.
Yeah. Well, I blame the media. I think there's not as much divide as they portray, but they have a vested interest in continuing that divide because it gets eyeballs onto their stuff. So when I talk with people like this, people have different ideas, maybe voting differently. It's a great conversation. It's usually very civilized and there's lots of good ideas. I've had ahas, with people and stuff like that. But if I sat all day watching Fox or watching CNN and doing all this other stuff, I'd just get all riled up. And I would think the other side's Satan and they're evil and they want to destroy, the country and everything else. So I'm hoping that things tone down a bit, but I'm not hopeful for that because the media, I think, is horrible in a lot of ways. It's just negative crap. So I reduce my media time too. I do something in the morning. We have tons of metaphors. We've got drive-by shooting stuff. I do a media pub crawl every morning when I'm eating my bagel. I've got probably 10 news sources I check out. And I do that while I'm eating my bagel and stuff, then I'm out of there. I'm not going to keep going on. So at least I can tell if the world's going to blow up or if there's a zombie apocalypse, but I'm not on there all day checking it out. I just do a really quick scan. I know some people would say, oh, don't do that in the morning because that's not a good way to start your day. Me, I like kind of just being informed, but then getting the heck out of there.
Yeah, you get informed and then, and you've shared this before, then get back to business, or what is it to change you want to create, whether it's in your business, whether you're doing something else. Don't let your brain get hijacked.
Yeah, exactly. It's tough because, I think people should speak their honest opinions, and if they shouldn't feel like they have to delete it. So if you put something on your Facebook that's a strong political statement, I hate when I see people trying to pressure someone to delete it. It's like, if you don't like it, just scroll past it. That's a tip for anyone who doesn't know. You're allowed to scroll past an opinion that you don't agree with. You don't have to jump in. I deal with, I say, Pennywise people commenting on my post. Pennywise, the clown from It.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a funny meme where it's a sewer scene where he's popping his head trying to convince a kid to go the little boy into the sewer. And it basically says the Facebook friend that only pops up to crap on your posts. And so I see some people sometimes when I see not his real name, Joe Smith has commented on your post like 2 seconds after I post it. I'm like, oh, here we go. And sure enough, he's crapping on my post. He's that Pennywise commentator that so I've started dropping some people just to save them hassle if I'm triggering them, but also to save me mental space. I don't mind if someone has a different opinion, but the only time that they comment is just to fight with you. Yeah, I don't really have time for that.
Yeah. So what change do you want to make in the world? You have these 20,000 followers and we're growing it to 100,000. If you could have everyone, boom, whatever you want happens. What change are you looking to create?
Well, I think a theme that runs through my whole business is around coaches, because that's who I service. It's getting coaches comfortable with making money, making a lot of money, but doing good for it. So I find a lot of coaches think that they either have to, I say, be coaching barefoot in some village far away, for free. And if you're not doing that, if you're charging a lot for your service, then suddenly you're one of these greedy, people that are only in it for the money. And I don't think that it's one or the other. I think that you can do very well, but still help a lot of people, and you should be compensated well. So that would be the big thing for me, is just get coaches comfortable with being compensated really well for what they're doing. But then they also have to give the return for that. It's not like there's a lot of, what do they say online, douchepreneurs that are just looking to make a quick buck, and they're just selling air or not much. That's not good either. So I would say that's it. Coaches making a lot of money and helping a lot of people while they're doing it.
Yeah. The more money you have, the more you can help. You don't have to put it all in the bank. I mean, have a nice savings, but remember, you get to help people with your money.
Yeah, exactly. And that great saying is, you can't light up the world if you can't pay your light bill.
Exactly. And put your mask on first for the airlines, right?
Yeah,
We got to take care of ourselves.
that's right.
Yeah. What are you grateful for right now, this moment?
Here's a full disclosure, something I've struggled with, because everyone said you should be writing down a list of things you're grateful every day. I've done it for a couple days, and then it kind of repeats, and then I say, oh, this is kind of silly, I'm gonna not bother with it, which is bad, because I think it's important to be grateful. I'm grateful for my health. Grateful for my son. He's 12 years old. He's a happy, healthy kid, and he's A1. I know a lot of people's kids are struggling with stuff, and I'm grateful that we've made it to 2021. Hey, we're here, world. So it's going to be a better year than 2020.
Yeah. And tip on gratitude, if you want to do it, because I do teach gratitude, it is okay to repeat. You do not have to have something new every day.
And that's a good tip, because I think I felt like, I got to come up with 100 different things, right? And pretty soon I'm grateful that my toilet is flushing this morning or something like that. I'm like, oh, am I? Yeah, I guess.
Well, it's good to be grateful that your toilet is flushing and that you have running water, because no doubt when that toilet breaks, you're going to complain about it. So anything you would complain about, if it's not working, you can offer gratitude when it is working. And yeah, it can be different every day. It can be that tree outside, the flower growing, your son every day. Have gratitude for that. So I find a lot of people get bogged down with that. Like, no, what's new?
Yeah, there's a great Twitter account. I'm trying to remember the actual name. It has Human Progress in there. It's like Human Progress Institute or something like that. And they tweet out some great statistics to show how things are actually great now, like much better than they were in the past. which we don't always realize following the news. So we think, oh my God, things are horrible. It's the end of the world. And we're so unlucky to be living this time. No, actually, things are great. So it talks about things like life expectancy, global poverty rates, although those have been shooting up with COVID, different things, but just a whole bunch of stuff. And it's like, wow, actually, we're living in a great time right now, but we don't realize it because we're being hypnotized by all the negative stuff hitting us.
So if you're doing the news pub crawl in the morning or the afternoon, try to include one news source that has some of that positive, not all the hijacking, or get hijacked, but get hijacked with at least a little bit of positive.
Yeah.
Well, man, thank you so much. Any final words, any last message you want to share with us? A question I didn't ask that you want to answer?
No, I mean, this was great. I mentioned to you that a book I read recently around self-love is called Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It. And it's Kamal Ravikant, and a great short book. And I've actually mentioned it to a few of my clients as well. So there's something to tie it into your whole theme people can check out. But no, you're doing great work. And I'm glad that you invited me on here. It's been a few years that we've known each other. So.
Well, I appreciate you being here. Contact info. How do you want people to reach out to you?
Yeah, well, the Facebook group, The Coaching Jungles, at coachingjungle.com. And people can check out the podcast, naturalborncoaches.com. They'll find me there too.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. Thank you, everybody, for watching, for listening. Please remember, you are loved.